When I sit with seniors and we talk about their health, there's a moment that always breaks my heart a little. It's when they lean in, lower their voice and say, "Barbara, my vision feels blurrier every month," or "I keep forgetting simple things, names, why I walked into a room. It's like my mind slips." So let me ask you gently, does this happen to you? Do the letters on a page sometimes blur together? Do your eyes struggle to focus when you're reading or scrolling? Do you walk into a room and suddenly forget why you're there? You're not imagining it, and you're certainly not alone. For years you've been told that fruit is always healthy, that it's natural, safe, and good for you at any age. But here's the part no one has ever said out loud. For seniors, some fruits can slowly destroy your vision and your memory. I know that sounds shocking, even contradictory, but once I explain what happens inside the aging body, it will make perfect sense. It's not that you aren't eating healthy, it's that 7 very common fruits many of you eat every single week, are now working against your eyes and your brain. Not because they are bad foods, but because your metabolism, your circulation, your nerves, and your retina have changed with age, and nobody warned you. Today, I'm going to reveal which fruits they are, why they quietly damage the most delicate tissues of sight and memory, and what you can choose instead to protect your brain and your vision. If you feel like your eyesight or memory has gotten worse over the last few years, just write 1 in the comments so I know I'm speaking to the right people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love for you to join this community, because here we learn how to age with strength, clarity, and dignity. Now let me explain why eating healthy can still fail you after 60. Once we reach this age, the entire internal landscape changes. Circulation slows, blood sugar becomes harder to control, inflammation becomes easier to trigger, and the nervous system becomes more sensitive, especially the fragile nerves of the eyes and the memory centers of the brain. A piece of fruit that a young body can process effortlessly may overwhelm a senior's system with sugar, acidity, or inflammatory compounds. There's a big difference between eating healthy for a 40-year-old body and eating healthy for a 70-year-old body, and yet most nutrition advice treats everyone as if they are the same. And this is the emotional truth I want you to hear. You're not losing your vision and memory because you're careless. You're losing them because no one told you which fruits your age can no longer tolerate. You've been doing your best with the information you had. Now you finally get the missing piece. Let me show you what actually happens inside your eyes and your brain. Picture the retina, a network of some of the tiniest, most delicate blood vessels in your entire body. They thrive on stability. They need gentle, steady blood sugar. But certain fruits create sharp sugar spikes, and when that happens, those tiny vessels swell, tighten, or become inflamed. That's when you get blurry vision after eating, dry or irritated eyes, headaches behind the eyes, or that heavy, strained feeling in the morning. And then there's the brain, especially the hippocampus, where memory is formed. High sugar, especially first thing in the morning or late at night, feeds oxidative stress. It disrupts the brain's communication pathways, triggering what many of you describe as fog, slowness, or just not feeling sharp. Add inflammation, another common response to the acids and sugars in certain fruits, and the brain simply cannot perform the way it used to. This is why some mornings you wake with blurry vision, why your eyes feel tired after reading, why remembering small details feels harder, why your focus fades quickly. And this damage doesn't happen loudly. It happens quietly, in the background, every time the wrong fruit collides with an aging nervous system. And this brings us directly to the heart of today's message, the 7 worst fruits for seniors who want to protect their eyes and their memory. Fruits that look harmless, even healthy, but that your aging body can no longer process without consequences. Let's begin. Let me start with a fruit many seniors proudly include in their morning routine: pineapple. You've probably heard it described as anti-inflammatory, good for digestion, even a natural healing fruit. And while some of that is true for younger bodies, it becomes a very different story after 60. Pineapple is extremely high in natural sugars and natural acids. And when you combine those two, sugar spikes plus acidity, you create the perfect storm for damaging the two most delicate systems in the body, your eyes and your brain. Here's what actually happens. First, the sugar surge. Pineapple raises blood glucose faster than almost any other fruit. And when that spike hits your bloodstream, the tiny vessels inside your retina, the ones responsible for sharp, clear vision, become irritated and inflamed. Many seniors tell me, Barbara, my vision is blurrier in the morning, but it gets better later. And often, it's not aging, it's breakfast. Second, the acidity. That refreshing, tangy flavor is the result of powerful acids that can inflame sensitive tissues. In the retina, these acids can trigger watering, redness, or that burning dryness that shows up after reading. And in the brain, they can worsen something we call neuroinflammation, the silent type that leads to brain fog, slower recall, and headaches. Let me share a quick story. Years ago, I worked with a woman in her 70s who loved her morning pineapple juice. She told me she drank it because she believed it was anti-inflammatory. But every morning she woke up with blurry vision that took hours to clear. She blamed her age. When she removed pineapple for just 1 week, her morning clarity improved dramatically. Not because her eyes healed overnight, but because they finally stopped being irritated every single morning. So what are the warning signs that pineapple may be harming your eyes or memory? Irritated, red or watery eyes, light headaches shortly after eating it, a slight dizziness or pressure behind the eyes, blurry vision when waking up. These symptoms can build slowly. So many seniors never connect them back to their food. Now, do you need to fear pineapple? No, but you do need to respect that after 60, your nervous system and your retina do not tolerate the same sugar and acid load they once did. If you want a safer alternative, choose berries, blueberries or blackberries, lower sugar, far less acid, and full of compounds that actually protect your eyes and brain instead of irritating them. And this is only the first fruit. The next one is even more surprising because it's the fruit most seniors eat, believing it gives them energy, when in reality it drains the brain. For years, people have told me they start their morning with a banana for energy, or because they've heard it's good for the brain, or because it seems like the simplest, safest fruit. And I understand why. Bananas feel gentle, familiar, easy to digest, but after 60, your body responds to bananas in a very different way than it did when you were younger, and this is something most seniors are never told. Bananas carry a high glycemic load, which means they raise your blood sugar quickly and sharply, far more than people expect. And here's the part many don't realize. The brain and the retina are the two organs most sensitive to sugar spikes. When your blood sugar suddenly jumps, your brain pulls its brakes, your concentration fades, your mental clarity dims. The hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory, focus, and recall, slows down under the weight of that glucose surge. And then, not long after, your blood sugar crashes. That's when the real fog settles in. Seniors describe it to me all the time. Barbara, I feel tired after breakfast, or I can't think clearly in the morning, or my eyes feel heavy, almost like they're swollen behind the eyelids. Most believe it's aging or stress or poor sleep, when in truth, it's often the simple banana they eat every morning without questioning it. I always say, eating a banana after 60 is like climbing up and down a sugar mountain several times a day. Your body works hard to get up the peak, then tumbles back down, and every one of those crashes affects your focus, your memory, and your eyesight. And because the retina is made of extremely delicate blood vessels, repeated sugar spikes weaken those vessels over time, leading to blurry vision, eye fatigue, difficulty focusing on text, and even headaches behind the eyes. Let me tell you about a gentleman I worked with not long ago. He was 72, sharp-minded, active, and proud of taking care of his health. Every morning, without fail, he ate a banana to feed the brain, as he used to say. Yet he struggled with constant brain fog, trouble remembering small things. and a strange pressure behind his eyes. He feared it was early cognitive decline. But when we examined his habits, the first thing I asked him to remove was the banana. Within 10 days, just 10, he told me, "Barbara, something has lifted." His mind felt clearer, his vision less strained, and his morning fatigue disappeared almost entirely. Not because he changed his life, but because he stopped forcing his brain to ride that sugar roller coaster every day. This is why I always remind my seniors, after 60, it's not just about eating healthy foods, it's about understanding how different foods affect an aging nervous system. Bananas aren't dangerous, but they are not the clean, stable energy people think they are. If you find yourself feeling mentally dull after breakfast, if your focus fades too quickly, or if your eyes feel swollen or blurry within an hour of eating, your morning banana may be the hidden culprit. And the good news is, changing it is simple. Switching to lower sugar fruits like berries can give you steady nourishment without overwhelming your brain or your eyes. As soon as you stop climbing that sugar mountain every morning, your mind begins to clear, your energy feels smoother, and your eyesight becomes noticeably sharper. It's a small change, but for many seniors, it becomes a turning point. Now let's talk about a fruit that looks so harmless, so innocent, that most seniors never question it for a moment: grapes. And I understand why. They're small, sweet, easy to eat, and for decades we've been told they're heart-healthy, full of antioxidants, even the perfect snack. But after 60, grapes can become one of the most misleading foods you can put into your body, especially when it comes to your vision and your memory. Grapes are extremely high in fructose, and fructose behaves very differently from ordinary sugar. When you eat grapes, that fructose doesn't go directly into your bloodstream the way glucose does. Instead, it goes straight to the liver, and once the liver becomes overloaded, something that happens very quickly in older adults, it begins producing inflammatory byproducts, including excess uric acid. And this is where the trouble begins. Because uric acid doesn't just affect your joints, it also irritates the delicate vessels behind your eyes and the sensitive nerves that support your brain. Many seniors who snack on grapes daily begin to notice dry eyes, a strange heat or burning sensation after reading, mild headaches that come and go, or a pressure behind the eyes that feels like tightness or swelling. They often blame age, dehydration, or too much screen time, when in reality their liver is struggling to clear the fructose they're consuming. And once that inflammation begins circulating through the bloodstream, it doesn't remain small. It becomes systemic. It shows up as brain fog, slower thinking, irritability, difficulty recalling simple things, and that feeling of mental heaviness that's so easy to dismiss. What surprises most people is how quickly it happens. Grapes are small, so it feels harmless to eat just a handful. But here is what I tell every senior I work with. A handful of grapes is not a handful of fruit. It is a handful of sugar. Those tiny skins concentrate fructose in a way your body could handle when you were 30, but becomes overwhelming when you are 65, 70, or older. I remember working with a woman who came to me complaining of pressure behind her eyes and terrible fatigue after reading or watching television. She told me she was doing everything right, resting her eyes, wearing her glasses, even reducing her screen time. But nothing helped. When we reviewed her diet, she said something almost all seniors say: "Oh, I just snack on grapes during the day. They're healthy, they're natural." When she removed the grapes for 2 weeks, the pressure behind her eyes dropped dramatically, her headaches faded, and her energy returned. Not because grapes are bad, but because her aging liver could no longer handle daily doses of concentrated fructose. This is the part no one tells seniors. The older you get, the less tolerant your body becomes to fructose. And your eyes, especially the retina, are among the first places to show that intolerance. If you feel your eyes drying out, if you feel foggy after eating, if you notice slight headaches in the afternoon, or if your thinking feels slower than it should, your grape bowl may be part of the problem. Grapes aren't forbidden, but they are a fruit that must be treated with respect. A very small portion occasionally, never a full bowl, never an evening snack, is usually safe for most seniors. And if you want something to replace that craving for a little something sweet, I always recommend a few berries instead. They satisfy the desire without overwhelming the liver, without spiking inflammation, and without exhausting the vessels behind your eyes and inside your brain. The key is not to fear food, but to understand what your body can and cannot tolerate at this stage of life. Grapes may be small, but the impact they have on an aging nervous system is anything but small. Now let's talk about watermelon, a fruit so refreshing and innocent looking that most seniors never suspect it could be working directly against their eyes and their memory. And I say this gently because I know how comforting it feels on a warm afternoon or as a light evening snack. But watermelon has one of the highest glycemic indexes of any fruit. And for an aging body, that means it behaves almost like drinking a sweetened soda disguised as something natural. When you eat watermelon, the sugar enters your bloodstream extraordinarily fast, far faster than your eyes and brain can comfortably handle. Within minutes, your glucose rises sharply, and that spike sends your delicate retinal vessels into a state of stress. Many seniors tell me they don't feel anything right away, but a little later, their vision becomes slightly blurry, or the print in a book looks softer, or their eyes begin to feel heavy, as though the muscles that help them focus are suddenly tired. That isn't aging. That is the aftermath of a glycemic surge from a fruit that your metabolism could once tolerate, but no longer does. I've seen this pattern again and again, especially in seniors who enjoy watermelon in the evening. They believe they're making a gentle, hydrating choice, something light before bed. But what actually happens is that their blood sugar jumps quickly, then crashes during the night, and the retina, which depends on stable energy and calm circulation, wakes up irritated and fatigued. Some describe it as waking with hot eyes. Others say the world looks slightly out of focus for the first half hour of the morning. And many tell me they feel mentally dull after a night of watermelon, as if their brain is still trying to catch up. That fogginess, that visual heaviness, that sense of strain behind the eyes is not random. It's a response to rapid sugar broken down so fast the body doesn't know how to stabilize itself. I remember a gentleman in his 70s who came to me convinced his eyesight was deteriorating. He said, "Barbara, every morning my eyes feel swollen and tired. I must be losing my vision." But when we reviewed his routine, he revealed he was eating a large bowl of watermelon almost every night because he believed it was light, gentle, and hydrating. When he removed it for 2 weeks and replaced it with a simple glass of water infused with cucumber or a small herbal tea, the change was remarkable. His morning heaviness faded, the blurriness lifted, and his mind felt clearer, not because his eyes magically improved, but because we removed the nightly glucose shock that was exhausting his visual and cognitive systems. This is the part many seniors never hear. Hydration does not require sugar. Your eyes do not need fructose to stay moist. Your brain does not need a sweet fruit before bed to rest. In fact, the simplest hydration, clean water, or even warm chamomile or mint tea, supports your nighttime repair far better than a fruit that overwhelms your blood sugar before you even lie down. Watermelon may feel cool and refreshing, but the truth is that for an older body, it often brings more stress than relief. And once you understand how much stability your eyes and your memory depend on, choices like this begin to feel very different. You don't stop eating fruit out of fear. You simply choose what your body at this age can genuinely handle. And when you do, your mornings begin to feel lighter, clearer, and more like yourself again. Let's move now to a fruit that almost every senior trusts without question: oranges. For decades, we've been told that oranges are essential for immunity, wonderful for energy, and even supportive for eye health because of their vitamin C. And while vitamin C is indeed important, oranges are far from the gentle remedy many believe them to be, especially after 60. What most people don't realize is that oranges are highly acidic, and that acidity doesn't just sit in your stomach. It travels through your bloodstream and can irritate the delicate mucous membranes that line your eyes, your sinuses, and even the tiny vessels inside the retina. When you pair that acidity with the natural sugar in oranges, particularly when consumed as juice, it becomes a combination that fuels inflammation rather than calming it. Many seniors who struggle with dry eyes, recurring headaches, pressure behind the eyes, or increased sensitivity to light don't realize that their daily orange or glass of orange juice may be contributing to the very discomfort they're trying to fix. I've seen this pattern so many times. A well-meaning person drinking their morning orange juice for my eyesight, only to find that within an hour their eyes feel strained, the print on the page looks too bright, or their head begins to throb. I once worked with a woman in her mid-70s who came to me deeply worried about her vision. She told me that every morning she drank a large glass of orange juice because she believed it would strengthen her eyes. Yet every morning, almost predictably, she felt a burning around her eyelids and a pressure behind her temples that made reading nearly impossible. She thought she might be developing an eye disease, but when we looked at her habits, the truth was much simpler. Her eyes were reacting to the acid load and sugar spike from the juice. We replaced her orange juice with a far gentler source of vitamin C, something as simple as a small kiwi or even a warm infusion with rose hips. And within 2 weeks, she reported that the pressure behind her eyes had eased, her headaches diminished, and she could sit with her morning newspaper again without discomfort. It felt like magic to her, but it wasn't magic at all. Her eyes simply stopped being irritated every morning. What I want you to hear is this: your eyes and your nervous system become more sensitive with age, not less. What you tolerated easily when you were 30 or 40 can begin to overwhelm your tissues past 60. Acidic fruits like oranges can inflame tiny vessels, especially in people prone to migraines, sinus pressure, or light sensitivity. And when your eyes are already under daily strain, from screens, from glasses, from dryness, from aging muscles, that extra irritation can push them over the edge. None of this means oranges are bad. It simply means they are not always the right choice for an older body that needs calm, not stimulation, stability, not acidity, gentle nourishment, not a sharp surge of sugar and acid all at once. When you switch to a softer vitamin C source, your eyes often tell you immediately. They feel less inflamed, mornings feel easier, your energy rises instead of crashing, and your vision begins to settle into a more relaxed clarity. And all of that comes from choosing what truly supports your body at this stage of life, not what you were told was healthy decades ago. Green apples are one of those fruits that look so clean, so crisp, so harmless, that most seniors eat them with absolute confidence, believing they're choosing the lighter, healthier option. And while that may be true for a younger body, it becomes a very different story once you are past 60. Green apples contain a specific acid, malic acid, that gives them their sharp, tart flavor. In small amounts, and for younger people, it's not a problem. But in an aging nervous system where tissues are more sensitive and the stress threshold is lower, malic acid can act almost like sandpaper. It irritates the digestive tract, it creates tension in the body, and once it enters the bloodstream, it can aggravate the fine vessels behind the eyes and the nerves around the temples and jaw. When you combine that acidity with the natural sugar every apple still contains, the result is a glucose spike that many seniors do not recognize. They simply see it as a healthy snack. But the brain feels it immediately, especially the older brain that struggles with rapid fluctuations. Many seniors who regularly eat green apples begin noticing patterns they never associate with the fruit. A headache that builds quietly toward the end of the day, a tightness behind the eyes, a little more jaw clenching than usual, or stiffness in the neck that seems to appear out of nowhere. And for many, the most overlooked symptom is restless sleep. The acidity and sugar together activate the nervous system just enough to keep it alert when it should be settling down. So instead of drifting into deep rest, the brain stays slightly wired, making the night lighter, more fragmented, and far less restorative. I've worked with countless people who told me they ate a green apple to be healthy, especially in the evening when they wanted something light. And yet they complained of waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, feeling tense, unable to relax again, or noticing pressure around their eyes before bed. One woman in her early 70s would eat a green apple every night because she believed it was gentler on her digestion. But each morning she woke with tightness in her temples and a buzzing feeling in her mind, as though she hadn't truly rested. When she removed the nightly apple, the change was remarkable. Her sleep deepened, the morning tension behind her eyes faded, and the persistent neck tightness she had blamed on getting older began to let go. What made the difference wasn't a supplement or a new mattress. It was simply removing a fruit her nervous system could no longer tolerate. And this is what I want you to hear. Eating a green apple alone, especially on an empty stomach or before bed, intensifies the body's reaction. The acidity hits harder, the glucose rises faster, the brain becomes more agitated. What feels like a harmless, healthy choice can become exactly the opposite for a senior who needs stability, not stimulation. It's not about fear. It's about understanding what your body is quietly asking for at this stage of life. When you give your brain foods that soothe instead of irritate, your evenings become calmer, your sleep becomes deeper, and your mornings feel clearer, lighter, and more grounded. Sometimes the smallest adjustments create the biggest relief. Now let's talk about mango, a fruit so delicious and comforting that many seniors see it as a harmless pleasure, even a reward. And I understand why. It's soft, fragrant, creamy, and full of memories of summertime and celebration. But for an aging brain and an aging visual system, mango can quietly become one of the most damaging fruits you can eat regularly. Mango contains an exceptionally high amount of natural sugar, far higher than most people realize. And when you're younger, your body can manage that sudden rise in glucose. But after 60, when your insulin response has slowed and your blood vessels have become more delicate, that sugar rush becomes something very different. It becomes inflammation. Each time you eat mango, your blood sugar spikes rapidly, and that spike sends shock waves through the fine vessels of your retina, the tiny capillaries that nourish your eyes, and the fragile nerves responsible for memory and focus. Many seniors who enjoy mango frequently begin to notice the same symptoms: a subtle heaviness behind the eyes, a sense that focusing takes more effort, a dull fatigue in the brain that makes even simple tasks feel slightly harder. They assume it is aging. In truth, it is often their fruit bowl overwhelming their nervous system. What happens inside the body is simple but powerful. That high sugar load forces the blood vessels to expand and contract rapidly, and over time this repeated strain can contribute to microdamage in the vessels of the eyes. The retina, one of the most energy-demanding tissues in the entire body, struggles under the constant pressure. Vision becomes tired more easily. Bright light feels more intense. Reading becomes something you have to push through instead of something that flows naturally, and the brain suffers just as much. Mango sugar floods the liver, promoting inflammation and encouraging the formation of small fat deposits around organs, including those that support hormonal balance and cognitive clarity. This is why so many seniors who eat mango regularly experience persistent brain fog. They tell me, "Barbara, I feel like my mind just doesn't switch on in the morning," or "it's like my thoughts move through molasses." And when we look closely at their habits, mango often appears more frequently than they realize. After dinner, in smoothies, as dessert, or as a mid-afternoon pick-me-up. One gentleman I worked with ate mango almost every night because he believed fruit was always good for him. Yet every morning he woke with pressure in his forehead and a strange fatigue in his eyes. He thought he was developing a neurological problem, but when he removed the mango for just 10 days, the pressure eased, his thinking sharpened, and that morning haze he had accepted as normal aging began to lift. His body wasn't failing him, it was simply overwhelmed. And this is the image I want to leave you with. Eating mango at night is like giving candy to the brain at the exact moment it is trying to repair itself. Instead of supporting your nighttime healing, it forces your nervous system into a cycle of stress and overexertion. Your brain cannot rest when it is working to stabilize sugar. Your eyes cannot replenish when their vessels are inflamed. And your memory cannot strengthen when your nerves are swollen and tense. This doesn't mean mango is forbidden forever. It simply means your body at this age needs stability, not sugar storms. Calm nourishment, not tropical intensity. When you replace mango with fruits that are gentle, lower in sugar, and kinder to your nervous system, you will feel the difference within days. Clearer thinking, calmer eyes, more restful sleep, and a sense of mental ease you may not have felt in years. It's not about giving things up. It's about finally giving your body what it has been asking for all along. Before we finish, I want to speak to a fear many of you carry quietly. So often I hear, "Barbara, I think I'm going blind," or "I feel like I'm losing my mind." And I want you to hear me clearly. You are not failing. Your eyes and your brain have simply been overwhelmed and undernourished, reacting to fruits your younger body once handled easily, but now inflame your nerves, spike your sugar, and strain the most delicate tissues you have. You are not broken. And even in your 70s or 80s, your body still responds the moment you stop feeding the problem and begin supporting healing. Choosing the right fruits isn't restriction, it's protection. It's choosing clarity over fog, calm over strain, and health over habit. If you'd like me to send you a small guide with safer fruits and simple ways to protect your vision and memory, just comment, "I want to improve my health." And if this message spoke to you, I would appreciate a gentle like and a subscription. This community is growing because seniors like you want to see better, think clearer, and live fuller lives. Share this with someone who struggles with tired eyes or a slow mind. It may change more than you think. As we close, imagine yourself in your kitchen tonight, choosing fruit with intention, feeling steady, calm, and back in control. That small moment is the beginning of your healing, and I'll be right here with you.